everyone, and welcome to Star Trek Wars, your official bootleg Strange New Worlds podcast. My name is Jeremy. Joining me tonight, who just won us some money hustling kids at Call of Duty, but he still doesn't know what a meme is. It's Jordan. Hey, Jordan.
Hey, just celebrated. Just bought us some hot dogs.
Okay. Please, extra wheat loaf for mine. And to my left, Paramount Plus deleted her, but brought her back right before we started. It's Chelsea, my co-partner and co-host.
Hi, guys.
Hi. The episode we're reviewing tonight will be rated on a scale from 1 to 10 by us, the co-hosts, and you guys in the Star Trek Wars Council left a rating on our Facebook page. If you wish to join the council and have your vote counted for next week's episode, head over to that page. You can find us by searching for Star Trek Wars. The council should pop up right at the top. There you can rate episodes yourself and can also leave a comment that'll be potentially read on air. It's a great community. We're all on there, very active, and love talking Trek with you. Now, before we get started, special thanks to the Denver Fan Expo. Chelsea and I were there over the weekend and got to meet some of our heroes, specifically Michael Dorn, Jonathan Frakes, and Gates McFadden.
Yes. That was so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cool.
They're every bit as wonderful as you would hope they would be.
Yeah.
Dorn, though.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I don't know if you guys know this, but the very first Comic-Con I ever went to about 9 years ago was when the podcast started. I got to go to a TNG panel, and the first celebrity I ever met was Michael Dorn. I went up for my very first autograph ever, and it was very much like meeting Worf. Just a little cold. Granted, I'm sure I did not know how to act. I was probably trying to kiss him or something. And
Oh, God.
he was, he gave me a polite fist bump, which was nice. But for the most part, it's like, thank you. And then I guess that's end of transition. Okay, transaction. Not much has changed in 9 years.
He was nice. He was just quiet.
Yeah.
A little eccentric. He was singing a song to himself.
To himself. Just after we left.
Yeah.
Just not to us. And I saw something I'd never seen before at a Comic-Con as we were leaving Chelsea. There was a little drunken dispute between Starfleet officers as we were walking back to a car. Do you remember how that?
There was drama in the Starfleet world for sure. There was a couple cosplayers, and I don't think that we're gonna cuss, right?
Oh, we can cuss.
Okay.
This is a story.
So we're trying to get back to where we parked, and there's three of them, and
Old Starfleet
the
officers.
lieutenant commander, and that is very important for later in the story. Said to his, I guess, ex-friend that he could kindly unhook his arm from his fucking wife's arm. And then they just started arguing. And then the lieutenant commander decided to walk off, and his friend called out to him, Lieutenant Commander Paul. And all he said was, at least you remember my rank. So he just gave his wife up, but at least he remembered his rank. So that was the perfect ending to
Kindly unhook your arm from my fucking wife, Lieutenant Commander.
Yeah.
Oh, drunk conventions are the best.
Really fun. I hope those crazy kids made it home okay.
Maybe this was a tomorrow situation, and they were actually time travelers.
Oh, yeah.
But they were not representing Starfleet very
No.
well that day, I can tell you.
No.
Corrections Department. Jordan, last week you called Data's Day a courtroom drama. I think you were talking about Measure of a Man.
I definitely was, yeah. That was not Data's Day.
No, well, Measure of a Man was certainly Data's Day, but it wasn't Data's Day.
Yeah, it's true.
Also, I forgot to play Ken Holzhauser's audio for that episode.
Oh, great.
So I'm going to rectify that right now by playing what he thought of Ad Astra per Aspera. Take it away, Ken.
Hello, incoming transmission from gentleman cartoonist Ken Holzhauser. Sorry I haven't been able to communicate with you guys for a while. I'm afraid we had to take the USS Jack Kirby on a slingshot around the sun to get from the 23rd century and slip neatly back here to the 22nd. Oh, the USS Jack Kirby. Yes, we're a proud vessel. We're mostly cartographers and cartoonists. So we'll punch up a really good editorial cartoon if you're looking for one. I mean, I myself have a famous one about Admiral Satie that got me a Pulitzer Prize, but that's neither here nor there. What we're here to discuss today is Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 2, Ad Astra per Aspera. And I have to say, this series hits all the right buttons for me. It really does. It's nostalgic in the best possible ways. It's flashy and modern in the best possible ways. But it's the core ideals of Star Trek that I think is what the series gives me that I really appreciate, which is, for me, the basic tenet of Star Trek, which is a diverse group of people problem solving. Problem solving is the heart of Star Trek. It's pew, 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 and fight, 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 and oh my gosh, there's Klingons. But it's not that all the time. What it is all the time is problem solving. And everybody bringing their opinions and their perspective and their ideas to the table. Famously, in the original Star Trek, it was always Captain Kirk's duty to sift through Mr. Spock's logical, cold approach and Dr. McCoy's humanitarian, over-emotional approach to find that balance, because that's where the truth lies. And this series keeps that spirit going, lights that candle. This particular series, I think, would do the originators of Star Trek proud by being so specifically an allegory of our times. And it's definitely one of those things where when you curtail the rights of people just for being who they are, and you force a people to be less because of your beliefs, you're really hurting yourself. One of the best things to come out of Star Trek has been IDIC, IDIC, infinite diversity in infinite combinations. It's a beautiful sentiment. And the biggest problem is that Star Trek as a series and Starfleet as a group often lose sight of how important that is. And that's why you need an episode like this to remind everybody that even our heroes still have to strive to reach their ideals. As for the episode itself, lovely performances, beautiful camera work, and like I say, those core Star Trek values. It's dramatic, and it's moving, and it's hopeful. I mean, what else do you want? A drunken Spock? You got that last week. It's okay. And there's comedy to come, people. It's fine. And more pew, pew, pew. I plan to be here in orbit for the next few weeks, doing some studies and, the odd sketch here and there. And I am looking forward to the journey. As ever, this is gentleman cartoonist Ken Holtzhauser signing off. Live long and prosper.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Ken. And if you guys have not seen his drawings, they are pretty incredible. He puts them up on accounts all the time. He had a great one for La'an for this week's episode. Speaking of this week's episode...
So let's get down to the business.
Yes, Hagath. Let us indeed get down to the business. Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Season 2, Episode 3, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Written by David Reed, no relation, directed by Amanda Rowe. La'an travels back in time to 21st century Earth to prevent an attack which will alter humanity's future history. All right, let's see if we want to hit this week's episode or quit it. If we like this episode, we will
Hit it.
And if we didn't love this episode, well...
I quit. To hell with you.
All right.
Sure.
All right, Chelsea, you want to start with your hit it or quit it? And what are your initial reactions to this week's episode?
I think that I would hit it, but with a Mack truck.
Oh, that's a plot twist.
So
I don't know what to think.
well, there you have it.
Just showed how easy it is to screw up this
That is all.
metaphor.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Cecily. Well, we'll get more into that and what that means later. Jordan, would you hit it or quit it?
I'm going to hit it and hit it and hit it.
Ooh. Okay, I think I know what that means. I think that's good. Well, that's exciting. I can't wait to find out because for me, well, I feel like you guys will understand. I feel like Lazarus and the alternative factor. There's two Jeremys fighting across two realities here. One of them loved this episode. The other one hated it. Both have terrible facial hair. So let's jump into our pros. Jordan, why don't you lead us off?
Oh, absolutely. I love this episode. It was so good that. Wait a second. Who filed the noise complaint? Okay, I will try to podcast less vigorously. Tone it down. I like the noise complaint against Spock. That was a pretty funny scene, and just him and his leer. He's going to town. Leather Spock. We got an occurrence of Leather Spock when he's the captain of the Vulcan vessel that's fighting the Romulans. That was interesting. I thought they might go a little bit more and see the alternate timeline versions of people, which could have been fun, but I guess it would have taken away from this episode a little bit and what the point was. It was also a little over an hour, so there's not a whole lot more time they could have done. I like the scene where Kirk and La'an are going shopping and they come out in the exact same outfit. And I thought that was pretty funny. Kirk hustling some chess, calling 2D chess, a simpleton's game, basically. And Kirk making the counter argument for his own timeline, which we don't see too much in Star Trek. It's just like the prime timeline that we're in with our characters is the most important because reasons. So it was kind of cool to see that. And it definitely makes sense from his perspective that, he doesn't want to not exist anymore. So yeah. La'an not having to have the stigma of her last name and being able to feel like she can let her guard down around Kirk makes a lot of sense. It's kind of cool for her character. I don't know that the show has done a great job of showing us, the issues with her last name because everyone on the ship is pretty cool with her. And there hasn't been, like the Una situation similar to, we don't have anyone on the ship who's, against Una in any way or La'an. So some heavy stuff in this episode for sure. Like when I was thinking about it after her deciding to let Khan live so that like World War III can happen, it's kind of similar to the outcome of City on the Edge of Forever, except you have to let someone live instead of make someone die. And towards the end of this episode, she leaves this gun behind, and I'm wondering I'm assuming she did that on purpose, and I'm wondering if that's the gun that was used to shoot that agent, because I don't know if Khan shoots him or if the Romulan agent shoots him. I wish they would have maybe tied things full circle with that. But yeah, it's an interesting episode. I like the time travel elements of it. I like the story that they told. They did some weird timeline shifting, which I'm not sure why that happened exactly. But her decision kind of reminded me of this episode of a TV show called Future Man. Have you ever seen that?
No.
So it's a Hulu show. I don't know. I watched it a few years ago. It's ridiculous. But there's an episode where one of the characters has to go back in time to kill this guy who's responsible for, atrocities that send the future into this terrible dark timeline. And the whole episode takes place over the course of like 5 years. And he's a baby at this point. She falls in love with this kid. She lives in the house, takes care of him. And then she can't bring herself to kill him because he's this cute little baby. So it is so funny. I need to rewatch that episode, but that did not exactly happen here. She meets him for 10 seconds and then beams away right in front of him, which is kind of a weird decision, but definitely check out Future Man if you haven't. And I like Kirk because he's easily sidetracked by food, which is extremely relatable. Oh, Reese's peanut butter cup. But yeah, I mean, Kirk he had a different aura about him for sure. And Paul Wesley really just playing alternate Kirk constantly, apparently, I guess is his call in life. Much more in the pros this week for me, his performance than, the first time we saw Kirk. I thought There was some chemistry between the two. I thought they played pretty well together, and I liked his choices and his character. I thought he was enjoyable and relatable, and I was definitely sad when he got shot. So, neutral zone wise, I kind of wish that Kirk was just a new, different character and not James T. Kirk. I thought he could be just a different captain. I don't know why he has to be Kirk, especially for this story, but I guess it kind of ties into the Sam Kirk thing and their name. There's some cool things that they do with that. It turns out I don't dislike this actor. I just don't like him as Prime Kirk yet.
Yeah.
It's a little predictable at times as well. Like I knew that picture taking girl was going to be bad. We knew that they're going to go find Pelia in Vermont. So, it wasn't bad at all, but just a little predictable at times. And I'll put this in neutral zone because I don't think it impacted the episode too negatively. But just when you thought you couldn't see less Anson Mount as Pike in Strange New Worlds, we see all of 10 seconds of him this week. Shockingly less than the past 2 episodes. I did hear the first few episodes were filmed like around the time his child was born. So I think that's more than a valid excuse to not have him in the first 3 episodes hardly at all. It just kind of stinks that it's 3 weeks in a row that it's happened and at the beginning of the season. So that's what I thought.
Thank you, Jordan. Chelsea, what worked for you?
So I thought that Khan as a little boy was really cute.
Yeah.
Leather Spock was
really cute.
Really cute. Love Leather Spock. I came up with that on my own. I did enjoy that this was more like a La'an specific episode. I don't know much about the canon and stuff for the Star Trek universe, but it was nice to see her have an episode that wasn't based around the Gorn, but instead kind of address the elephant in the room of her relation to Khan.
Yeah, your relationship with her has kind of been a little...
Yeah, it's gotten better though.
Awesome.
I like her now. It also reminds me of a show. Jordan, have you ever seen a show called Stars on Mars?
No.
Yeah. So
I've heard of it, reality show.
But yeah, it ties in directly to this because it also has Captain Kirk, except for I think in this he's called Shaddy Daddy. So you can check that out and thank us later.
Frakes is as everything you would want Frakes to be. That reality show is everything you fear about reality shows.
It's so bad. Don't ever watch it.
I saw a commercial for it. I was like, I don't think so.
To the point that we switch it on for 30 seconds and they call Shatner's Base Command and they call him Shaddy Daddy. And then we stopped watching. And then 2 weeks later, I switched it on for 30 seconds and they called him Shaddy Daddy. I'm like, oh, that wasn't a one-time thing. Okay. Goodbye forever.
Yeah, unfortunately I don't have many pros for this week.
No worries. That's where I swoop in with 3 pros.
Oh, wow.
Like I said, I have mixed feelings with this, but it's grown on me for sure. And I do like the differences between this. You don't want to compare it to City on the Edge of Forever, but there are some similar but opposite things that are happening between the 2 episodes. And the biggest one being we go from Jim, Edith Keeler must die to La'an, Khan must live. And that's kind of a cool twist. Oh, this is just a dumb joke. Okay. The Romulans secretly spending 100 years to essentially stall human progress. Talk about a La'an Khan.
It's true.
Christina Chong was the absolute highlight for me this week. I thought she was awesome and absolutely crushed the role. I love her as an actor, and I truly enjoy La'an as a character. I do feel sorry about her name, though. I mean, it even rhymes with Khan. It's like, oh, Adolf Hitler? Any relation?
Adolf.
And this is where I get a little bit torn, because the retconning, which someone else on the council beat me to this week, we'll get into that in the fan comments, really pissed me off. At first, making Khan a Canadian Gen Zer was like a choice. One that initially did not live with me very well. I really hated it until we went to bed, and it's just stuck in my mind. I didn't sleep. And I just thought about this episode because I got to be honest with you. After watching this episode for the first time, there was not a lot of pros leaping to my mind. A few things just was not settling right with me. And then this retconning, it really was just boiling my blood until I thought about it. And in actuality, it's a bold and genius decision to have just that one element, the eugenics wars, pushed back a few decades. It doesn't ruin anything because Carl Montalban's still going to be that age when he meets Kirk and Space Seed, so none of that matters. So it's fine. And it actually helps us people who actually lived in the 90s not be like, yeah, but Khan wasn't here in 96. It helps us, and it also helps other Trek series like Voyager, who went back in time to 1996, and it looked like nothing bad was happening.
Wait, they went back in time to Earth?
Yeah, Voyager had a two-parter where they went
Future's
back.
End.
Yeah, Future's End, a two-parter. That was set. They went back in time to 1996, and it was just L.A. in 1996.
Sarah Silverman was there.
Yeah, that's as 90s as that was.
Why didn't they just stay there? Isn't that the end game, to get back to Earth?
Well, I mean, Endgame was a different episode, Chelsea, of course. As you know, that's the series finale. But yes and no. I think they had to save the future. It's one of those, we got to fix stuff.
A leads to B, leads to C,
Yeah.
leads to A situation. You understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, riveting stuff. Thank
We
you.
all get it. Plus, personally, I think I prefer the eugenics wars leading up to or potentially causing World War III more than having one happen in the 90s and the other happen whenever it happens. I think it makes more sense in my headcanon, and having them explain that that's the only thing that changed was pushing that timeline, but nothing else changes. I think that's a smart decision to have. The why do you say Martha moment in this episode? Martha, why do you say Martha? And that's, when that's what turned this Kirk around to helping is Sam. Why do you say Sam? Why Sam? Why do you say that name? But unlike that dumb movie, this was a great moment. Yeah, Jim, Sam was alive in our timeline for like 6 more years. Sucker. But it worked. Neutral zone wise, those poor temporal agents, they must have been working overtime during these years in our timeline, the early 2020s. In the span of a year, they have La'an and Kirk stopping the Romulans in Ontario. Then Sisko, Dax, and Bashir are starting the Bell riots in San Fran. At the same time, Picard's, fucking shit up in L.A. Like, what are they all doing here? They're all like 8 hours of each other. Well, a couple of years apart for some of them. But well, maybe not 2024. Like, it's basically the same point. So this is just a crazy, crazy era.
That Romulan agent saw a lot in her lifetime.
She really did. So does the Daystrom Museum that we've seen in Picard season 3 have 2 Kirk bodies in that museum? Because now we have one from Viridian 3 and the one that was murdered on the streets of Ontario.
What?
Yeah, and well, obviously this Kirk that was murdered on the streets of Ontario, I probably never. Well, I guess it did happen because they thwarted stuff. So there's a dead Kirk that was shot in this episode and killed. I wonder if temporal agents went back, brought that back, put it up to its next to its Viridian 3 body at the museum.
God.
Like Kirk, who died throughout the ages.
This one's in better shape.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
When crushed by rocks.
But I'd visit that exhibit. Palia, Neutral Zone. I gotta admit, Having an iconic comedian come in to play comic relief is a great idea. If the show is serious and needs a lighthearted touch, I don't think Strange New Worlds needs to be more lighthearted. It's pretty lighthearted as it is. Most of the characters crack wise in this. So I'm not sure we need a comic relief character if a third of the cast are already pretty funny. I mean, that's why Quark works on Deep Space Nine and Jet Reno works on Disco, because you got some darker characters. They come in, they lighten things up. I love Carol Kane, though, and I'm still on board with what they're going to do with her this year. But of all the new shows that needed some more comic relief, aside from Lower Decks, I think Strange New Worlds probably didn't.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what we thought about the pros. When we come back from this episode, well, we're going to talk about the cons. There's a lot of cons this week.
Why'd you say that name?
Star Trek Wars is a podcast that has reviewed every single episode of Star Trek. We covered the original series through Enterprise in our first 7 seasons that you can find on this feed. Season 8 is dedicated to the Trek films, and Season 9, that's where you're at now, friend, where we cover all things modern Trek. You can find every one of those right here on the Star Trek Wars feed, plus bonus content. With over 330 episodes of Trek content, it's never been a better time to
Hit it.
That's right, Captain. On top of that, we also have a Patreon channel that covers a wide variety of content, both Trek-related and otherwise. For just a few bucks a month, you'll get access to all that as well. Check us out over at patreon.com/Star Trek Wars. Now, let's get in to our... Jordan, you want to lead us off to what did not work for you this week?
Yeah, there's not too much, honestly. I really can't take Pelia. I also can barely understand her. Whatever this accent is that she's doing is just the weirdest choice. And I think that she was fine in the past as that character. And I actually really like the subversion of her not being an engineer at all and not knowing anything in that regard. But she is able to help them in a different way. So she was fine in the past, but not digging her as the new engineer. She's a little much. So I think this was the best possible use of her this week in both scenarios. And I don't know that they can do much better. And I didn't love it even when it was the best case scenario. It was more neutral zony. So I am worried. Kirk-wise, Kirk goes from being able to use a clutch, not being able to use a clutch, rather, to being a stunt driver from Fast and the Furious. Like, I know this is like a Kirk trope at this point, but it's a little weird. And it's hard to believe, to be honest with you. It's not just that. It's like it's somehow like sleeting. There's snow on the ground. He's driving through the city. He doesn't know laws like red light, green light, all this stuff, what lane to be in, none of it. So it's really a stretch of the imagination for that.
And then in like 7 years, when Kirk goes to that gangster planet, he never figures out really how to use that clutch. And he's older and wiser.
And this is a Kirk that didn't grow up on Iowa. I mean, the USS Iowa, but like it's not like he grew up on Earth and it's like alternate timeline. He learned how to drive. It's weird, but give him an automatic next time. And I would have liked to have seen something else play out, but we'll get to that in my next time.
Oh, wonderful.
Other than that, I think that's really all the cons. There's a few things you can nitpick here and there. The Romulan character, I guess I wasn't super sold on her. She was okay, but then they kind of dropped the line that she's been there for 30 years because she got there too early and the time shifting, which I kind of like that. And I just put myself in her shoes, like being stuck on Earth for 30 years as a Romulan. You would probably have the vernacular of someone on Earth and you'd be a little different than your standard issue Romulan. So
yeah. I like that. That puts her at the point of time where the eugenics wars initially was supposed to start happening.
Yeah.
Chelsea, what didn't work for you?
All right. So I thought this played out like a cringy rom-com, which was kind of upsetting. But at the same time, I didn't really feel like there was any actual chemistry between La'an and Kirk.
Alon Khan. La'an Khan.
You already made that joke. It's not the same as what I'm saying.
It still rhymes.
Stop it.
Right.
It's not the same.
So it's got to be funny.
Yeah, no real chemistry there. I don't know. It felt like this should have been funny. It felt like there was a lot of jokes and humor, but all of it kind of fell flat with me. Even like the little like mini bar comment, I wanted that to be so funny. And I can acknowledge that it might be for some people, but it was not for me.
And Strange New Worlds has been really good with their comedy.
Yeah.
It's just a mini joke.
I was like thinking about like young Shatner reading those lines, and I think that they would have been hilarious. I don't really get anything from this actor.
It's hard to fill the shoes of Shaddy Daddy.
You got that right, brother.
I don't know. I don't get anything from him.
Yeah.
So I was hoping, and I guess I'll continue hoping that gets better.
You weren't getting hot and bothered when he took off part of his shirt and you could see his ribs?
No.
Classic Kirk.
Guess
Okay.
I'm not a rib girl. Sorry. Okay. Anyway,
That's why we get along so well.
I prefer my men without ribs, actually.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
She prefers her men to look like Generations Kirk. That's where I swoop in. Oh my.
Kind of back to what you said with the driving. I had a lot of issues with this whole scene. Starting with, he knocks out that guy and steals a bright red sports car. And there's a police officer standing about a car length away from him when he knocks somebody out and steals the car. And then he's supposed to be like incognito, like following these black government vans through like a dreary downtown, icy, mind you, Ontario, in the brightest car they could find.
And those Chargers are all-wheel drive, aren't they?
Some of them are. I thought that was a Camaro.
And he did a nerve pinch too.
Could be a Challenger.
I will have seen that Kirk chop double action.
Oh, yeah, that would have been great.
Either way, like that's not how things happen here. Obviously no Pike is a huge con for me. Kirk said that he was from the USS Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe this is me being stupid, but somebody make it make sense, because later La'an says, "What's wrong? They didn't have sunsets where you're from." Like, he's from space. I don't think the sun sets in space.
That's a very insensitive comment by La'an.
Am I the problem here?
No,
Does this make sense?
it doesn't.
Ugh. I didn't like the Romulan. I felt like the only person that could actually act in this episode was La'an. So that was kind of rough. And then when they broke into the place where they were keeping Khan, that was kind of cool, right? The alarm goes off. Immediately there's a wave of security guards. And then the alarm continues to go off for, I don't know, let's say like 27 minutes. And there's not a peep. Like, they had 10 people guarding that place. Obviously, something is happening. And they're just like able to sit there and talk about their life and fight. And like, it just, I get that that's like a Hollywood thing. Because then like the second, like, everything's buttoned up, the security guards show up. But like, come on. Come on. I don't know. Also, it was really long.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, over an hour.
Kind of with Jordan on the Pelia thing, just because like I'm having a hard time understanding her. It's like talking to like your drunk aunt. It's
That's
hard.
exactly who she is.
Yeah,
She's a
like
drunk
it's so
aunt.
hard to understand her. I feel like I'm just like a couple seconds behind on like the processing. And so it's like impossible to even like tell if any jokes that she may be delivering are landing, because like, at least for me, I'm like 5 seconds behind, like trying to catch up. I don't know. It's a little rough.
Yeah.
But I do like her, though. I'm just confused by what she's trying to say to me. That's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Chelsea. Jordan's going to love this. One of my biggest cons, right up his alley. Paramount Plus.
Oh, God.
Or
What did they do to you?
Paramount
What did they do to you?
minus. All right. Burnt them. Moving on. Paramount Plus. For the most part, the app, we don't have issues with it playing anything. It's fine. But what it does do for us, and I don't know if it happens with other people, I hate previously ons. I think they spoil too much. They talk about, oh, here's a character. Like, oh, well, that character is going to be in this week's episode. So I always skip previously ons. So when this happens and we have the option to skip a previously on, naturally I
Hit it.
because I want to skip these previously ons. Unfortunately, with this terrible app, skipping previously on means fast forwarding through those previously ons, plus an additional first 3 minutes of the episode. Maybe that's what the plus is for. So I can't skip on this app because if I do, like I hit skip previously ons, it fast forwarded to Spock with his instrument. Like, ugh. So then I have to rewind to the beginning and watch the previously ons again. I hate it. I can't skip on this app. Therefore, we got to watch the previously ons. And what do they do? Previously on Strange New Worlds. Khan. Eugenics. Khan. La'an and Khan. Huh. What's this week's episode gonna be about, I wonder? I don't like that. I agree with Chelsea with the romance between La'an and Kirk. I don't think that was really set up very well. I get that Kirk's a ladies' man and that happens, but it seemed happening a little too fast for La'an, and with the stakes involved, it's not like they were living in Edith Keeler's basement for 3 weeks. Like they had like a day. They had to get things done. Oh man, I'll tell you what though, when we go on our Star Trek tours, I can't wait to visit that incredible bridge in Ontario. Whoa, that is a beautiful bridge. It almost looks CGI. It's so crystal clean and smooth. But I'm really excited to visit that. I'm really depressed having to talk about this next thing. Because this is where I get torn. This is the Lazarus effect, okay, for me. This is where I get torn into two. Because it makes me feel like an asshole. I actually really like Paul Wesley in this episode. I enjoyed him in this episode. He's charming. He's fun. He's light. I like him. But not a fiber in my being tells my brain that that's Jim Kirk. Not one. Like, I just can't see Kirk. And you said this, Chelsea. Like, if this was like a young Shatner or whatever, if they got someone that looked more like, if my brain bought that this was actually Kirk, I think the writing is right there. I think the writing for Kirk and how he's portrayed, I think, is perfect, and probably would have made this an old time episode for me if it was just that one aspect. If I actually bought that was young Kirk, but I couldn't.
I don't even need him to look more like him.
I don't think that's it. I don't know what it is. Because I like him, but I just don't see Kirk when I look at him or hear him talk. The way he looks, moves, acts, nothing.
Even his ribs are wrong.
Even his ribs are wrong. And I don't care how great of an actor he is. I just can't get past it. In the same way, like, I wouldn't be able to buy Vern Troyer if he were cast to play Andre the Giant. Like, I don't care how good of an actor you are. You're not Andre the Giant. You're 6'6".
What about Danny DeVito? He could play Andre.
Not since Twins have I seen such.
You had seen Jersey Mike commercials? Fantastic work. That's who I want to rep my food.
That's our
You
next.
could look like this.
You guys love Tim Burton's The Penguin, right? Like, he loves their subs. He'll bite the nose off anyone who doesn't. You were saying this, Short. Like, if he wasn't Kirk, if Paul Wesley played Sam Kirk, I think this would work great. I really enjoy this character that Paul Wesley is playing. It's just not Jim Kirk.
That would have made things a lot more interesting, because then Lon is on the ship with Sam Kirk.
Yeah.
And she's got those feelings. So instead of FaceTiming Jim Kirk, she's got the real deal right there. Mustache and all.
Yes. And you got a Kirk in this, just not James Kirk, and I would love that because I legitimately love Paul Wesley in this. Just as someone else, it would have been perfect.
Jeffrey Combs.
Sure, as the next as a young Jim Kirk. All cops are bastards. I think we can all agree on that. There's no way those cops could have been talked out of arresting Kirk here. I mean, maybe it's because they're Canadians, but how reckless Kirk was driving. And I know I don't look like James Kirk, but hell, I got pulled over and couldn't talk my way out of a ticket for going 4 over the speed limit once. Like, these cops don't care. And they had so many reasons to arrest him and so little not to. I know that the story calls for it, but I just was not buying that.
I once got pulled over and got out of a ticket because I had a Star Trek low Delta on my car.
Are you kidding me?
No, I was driving through Houston going to Astros game, and I got pulled over because it doesn't matter why I got pulled over, but I went through a light because there was a semi in front of me and I couldn't see, and it was green, and then I went through and it happened to turn red, and so the officer pulls me over. He said something to the effect of, all right, he's like, just be more careful next time. He's like, I can let someone who works for Starfleet off with just a warning or something like that.
Awesome.
It's funny. So,
granted, I pick a wrong day to wear my All Cops Are Bastards hoodie, but I was only going 4 over the wrong direction. So I'm generally a fan of needle drops in shows or movies where they drop a song during like an action beat or whatever. But man, when they don't work, they really don't work. And the car chase scene, it was really cringeworthy to me. It's just like, at that point, I was just like, just dead faced. Like, I don't like this. I don't like what's happening. Do Canadians eat hot dogs without condiments?
they have to.
And whole wheat buns?
Did she say they have to?
Yeah, it sounds like a Canadian thing. I don't know.
Goddamn socialists.
Yeah.
God.
Like, that was more hoagie bun than a hot dog, and it was whole wheat.
And he didn't even have like the water to dip it in, like Joey Chestnut style. Like, come on.
Ew.
Well, that's what we thought about this week's episode. Let's hear from you guys.
Picking up communication, sir.
Josh Reinhardt says, one could say this episode was a retcon of sorts. Yeah, Josh, one could have said it, but you said it first. I'll never forgive you.
Or forget.
Forget.
Keith Danforth says, time travel episodes are always a cautious bucket to put your hand into with Star Trek. You get some really good ones like TNG's Time's Arrow, Voyager's Relativity, and TOS's The City on the Edge of Forever. You get some epic but somewhat middling ones like Star Trek's First... What? Excuse me? First Contact? Middling? And then you
it's not as good as Time's Arrow, Jordan.
Yeah, it's true. And then you get the entire second season of Picard, which was a dumpster fire. Yes, it was. Tomorrow Times 3, fortunately, was very good. I enjoy seeing the Department of Temporal Investigations return to Star Trek in an interesting way and references to the temporal wars from Enterprise again. It felt like a very clean time travel episode without too many frills, which is kind of a plus and a negative. Being Trek, I always look for more of a cerebral time travel experience. By the time this episode gets to it towards the end, it's over. We're told shifts in the timeline push back events of the eugenics wars, but not what those shifts were. Was it all the Soong BS from Picard Season 2? When we see him pick up that con file? It would have been interesting to salvage that part from the show and have Strange New Worlds expand upon it. Yeah, Jocelyn and I definitely went in on that. The back and forth between Lon and Kirk was great. I enjoyed some of the one-liners, like having an Apple Store employee teach him how to use DuckDuckGo. What didn't really do it for me, though, was her romantic fling with him. It just felt a tad off for her character, though perhaps motivated by his somewhat nihilistic take on fixing the timeline, knowing he would be replaced by the version of himself she knew had this episode come maybe towards the end of the season and we saw the two prime timeline characters have a few interactions. I could have bought it more. Still good, just could have been better.
Yeah, was this the episode that they could have brought back Spiner to reprise his role as whatever Soong he was on Picard in everyone's favorite season. Ken Holtzhauser says, I enjoyed the idea of spotlighting La'an and her struggles with prejudices regarding her family history. An alternative universe is the only way she can avoid people making assumptions based on her name. I imagine Sally Hitler and O.J. Rabinowitz have similar problems. But much as I enjoy the ideas presented, Toronto isn't my idea of a strange new world. I'm seriously in need of watching the ensemble play off each other. Still, the end scene crushes.
Did you see those hot dogs? Definitely a strange new world. James Heath says, a lot of positives and a couple cons. Wesley was very good. Oh, Paul Wesley. Okay. Not that Wesley. Whew. But Christina Chong was sensational, which I agree with. Like, Christina Chong was so good in this episode.
Absolutely.
It's nice to see her fleshed out instead of being the stereotypical deadpan security officer like Malcolm Reed. My words, not his. The storyline was cute and not normally one that I would enjoy as much, but the Romulan twist and Chong's performance made this episode really enjoyable. The tie to Carol Kane's character in the past was smart, but I'm confused as to why she doesn't then recognize La'an at the end of the episode. That was a minor con for me, but the major one is we're blessed with 10 episodes a season, which I understand and I'm okay with it, because the quality has been incredible. But with so few new episodes a year, time travel is getting a little tedious for me. Whether it's the Klingon time crystals in season 1 of, Strange New Worlds, maybe he means Discovery, Borg Q influence in all seasons of season 2 of Picard, and the last 2 seasons of Discovery. I hope they take it easy on the same time travel story, just framed in different ways. Still a great episode though, solid 8. What the hell is a meme out of 10?
They did go back to the Klingon crystals in the finale of Strange New Worlds.
Wow, I totally forgot about that.
Barbara Whipple says... It's been a while. Barbara Whipple says, I enjoyed all the little jolts and surprises this week, from seeing Kirk and Spock as captains to Playa and her stash. There are some good in-jokes, like Kirk saying they were in New York and La'an telling him it was Toronto. That was good. And a hint of a piece of the action with Kirk driving the car. La'an was fun to watch this week, tuned a little lighter and not so forbidding. She really carried the show, and Kirk had more spark and interest than last season. That final shot of the watch was interesting. I wonder if we'll see it again.
Watch and see. William Jenks says, I know that this is an anthology show, but this is now 3 episodes that are, within reason, totally unrelated to one another, and 3 episodes based on well-trodden Star Trek tropes. I know we aren't expecting a chapter book here, but I do hope we see a few episodes a little more related to one another. Please, no musical or Ren Fair episode. Other people are more Borg fatigued than I. But I'm con fatigued. I guess we didn't have any choice but to address the con thing at some point, given that La'an bears the name. I would have preferred that we just didn't have that plot line at all. I hope we don't dwell too much on it anymore. While I'm at it, is it unambiguously good that she saved Khan? What about it had been the proverbial... What if it had been the proverbial baby Hitler? I thought La'an appearing on the Enterprise with Kirk as captain instead of Pike was kind of a cool twist, but it wasn't clear to me what there was anything added to the plot there, that the male that went back in time with her was Kirk, and given it was Kirk, did we have to have the cliche of her and Kirk kissing? I'm going to have to look at Wikipedia what Chekhov, the author, not the helmsman, had to say about watches. All this said, I did enjoy the episode, but so far I haven't been blown away quite as much as I remember feeling for Season 1. I do hope we get to see our main crew working together again.
Yeah, of course, Baby Hitler, I hated seeing him in the end credit scene of Boss Baby 2. That took me right out of it. William Jenks continues, one more thing. At the end, the temporal agent says La'an protected Khan like no one else could have. Why or how is that? So far, the Romulan had been stuck for decades, getting nowhere, and La'an uniquely gave her access to Khan. Couldn't anyone at all have killed the Romulan, at least in principle? Seems like La'an uniquely put the Federation at risk. By and large, I agree this was well written. That just stuck with me. Jordan, are we getting a visit this week? Is there a knock at the door?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see.
There's a knock at the door. No, that can only mean one thing, guys. It's part of the podcast where we take a nostalgic trip through time and visit the Gatekeeper of Forever. Oh, great Gatekeeper. As we all know, since before our sun burned hot in space and before our race was born, you've allowed a question. That question being, Gatekeeper of Forever, what are your thoughts on this week's Strange New Worlds?
So I just got done watching Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and all I can say is, I wish it was yesterday, so I never would have seen this episode. I haven't seen a romantic comedy that involves time travel that's this bad since I accidentally watched Kate and Leopold. What disgusting Trek troglodyte wrote this episode? To have Kirk kiss a descendant of his nemesis Khan Noonien Singh is an abomination to real Trek fans everywhere. And stop comparing this episode to City on the Edge of Forever. I was the star of that episode. That was a great episode. Speaking of Kirk, this Kirk has the charisma of a limp spaghetti noodle. And he has the body of one, too. So Kirk can make plummeek soup in a toilet. Huh, that's fitting, because this whole episode was made in a toilet. That's also where it belongs. I give this episode a 1. One broken watch, as in watching this episode nearly broke me.
I'm going to go ahead and shut the old door there. Thank you, Gatekeeper. Always a pleasure.
Put some mustard on your hot dog, damn it.
That guy hates everything.
He is a hater.
He ain't wrong about them hot dogs, though. All right, let's go ahead and review this week's episode. Chelsea, what do you give Tomorrow?
I think I'm gonna give it like 5 dry hot dogs made with rib meat only.
My mouth's watering.
This is McDonald's?
Jordan, what do you give it?
It's a McHot dog. I give it an 8. 8 retcons.
I think it'd be a McWiener.
The McWiener.
For a limited time only. Supersized?
If you prefer.
I'm going to give this one 6.5. 6.5 Plomix prison soups. Star Trek Wars Council gave an average score of a 7.45. All right, Jordan, you got a next time on for this week?
Yeah. So during the car chase scene, it played out a little differently. Kirk crashes the car into a hot dog stand because driving a manual in the snow is not easy at all, even for a good driver. So,
all right, very good. In an alternate universe from us, this episode starred William Shatner, finally coming back to Trek as Kirk with wonderful de-aging tech. Oh, God. Of course, in The Return of Shatty Daddy.
The shattening.
I think he already has that built in. He just has de-aging technology.
Yep.
I've met him, and I can confirm that is not true.
Okay, up close.
All right, let me contabulate these scores.
Do you think that Kirk would have been better at driving that manual if the gear shift was a hot dog?
Definitely.
With his mouth?
Damn, maybe. Seems like a question for Kirk.
All right, so how did Strange New Worlds do this week using the combined average score of ourselves? You guys who voted at home, Tomorrow lands here in present time with an average score of a 6.73. And that'll do it for this week. Star Trek Wars is available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and anywhere else fine podcasts are heard. If you want to support us in a non-financial way, the absolute best thing you can do is take a minute and leave an iTunes Apple Podcast review. That might not seem like much, but it is huge for our Al Gore rhythms. Reason reviews are what help other like-minded Trekkies like you find us, so please write a 5-star review and we will read it on air. You can also find us on Twitter at These Star Trek Wars. Jordan, always a pleasure. Where can they find you?
They can find me looking for some hot dogs over at the Oscar Mayer Wiener Mobile. I'm sorry, the Frankfurter Mobile, because they renamed it.
Did they really?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard that
Frankfurter
controversy.
Mobile?
Dr. Frankfurter? Oh, yeah.
And they can find me next week talking about, actually in a few days, the new Strange New World episode. So.
Can't wait. Chelsea, as always, thanks for doing this with me. Where can they find you?
I'm on the council page sometimes.
Yes, you are.
And yeah, in a couple days, I guess, like Jordan said.
As for me, well, when I'm not talking Trek, you can find myself and my son Connor discussing all the James Bond films at the Bonding Together podcast, now available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Well, that is it for Strange New Worlds this week. But Star Trek Wars will return next week to discuss the 4th episode titled Among the Lotus Eaters, which of course is Latin for to the stars through difficulties. But for now, looks like we're out of time.
Bye.
Is that a time travel joke?
Oh, I didn't even think about it that way. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Star Trek Wars.